Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Sunday, March 13th. It's my father's birthday. He passed away 8 years ago. He would be 86 years old today. So happy birthday, Dad. Love you. Miss you. So hope everybody is having a good weekend. Got some great news to report. If you haven't already heard, Secretary Cardona reaffirmed the department's commitment to changing how they treat bankruptcy cases. In other words, they are considering and working on something where they will not oppose student loan borrowers in bankruptcy court. That's not a total victory for us, but it's a very good thing. The Department of Education and its contractors like ECMC spend untold millions of dollars every year defeating the tiny number of bankruptcy cases for student loans that come to court. And I can tell you a lot of horror stories about that. If you've read the news lately, you would see maybe a few of them where 78-year-old women and disabled men and some people in some very dire circumstances are being fought tooth and nail by the Department of Education and its contractors. So it's really a very dirty business. I could not be happier. We've been calling on first President Trump and now President Biden to stop opposing student loan borrowers in bankruptcy court for years now. Actually, maybe even as long as, probably about 6 or 7 years. So thankfully, it would appear that is finally starting to bear some fruit. Now, the secretary also said that he had notified or advised the Department of Justice to put currently pending bankruptcy cases on hold upon the request of the borrower. So that would indicate to me that we have something forthcoming very soon and at long last. Now, make no mistake, we still need to get the law changed. There is no good reason to remove bankruptcy from student loans in the first place, and there's no constitutional basis for removing it, and much less for keeping it gone. And that's 3 different constitutional points of challenge there. But I don't want to talk about the nitty-gritty of that tonight. I'd like to talk about the argument that we're beginning to see from various people against bankruptcy for student loans. And there's a history behind this, but let me get to that later. Let me first of all just say, we've seen some people come around recently claiming to be fighting for student loan cancellation and fighting vehemently, like tooth and nail, against returning bankruptcy protections to student loans. So I want to take you through that argument and show you how that goes. So these people are claiming that that returning bankruptcy to student loans is an effort to kill student loan cancellation. The other points that they make is that, bankruptcy is a punishment and all the loans should be canceled, so we don't deserve to be punished. And beyond that, I guess the points I've heard them make are that bankruptcy is unpleasant. And, I agree with those second 2 points in many ways. But here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. Number one, the punishment, the cruelest punishment in the student loan universe is removing the right to do something as unpleasant as file for bankruptcy. That is the true, cruel, twisted, and depraved punishment that has been inflicted upon tens of millions of people, maybe even hundreds of millions since the 1970s. Bankruptcy is no picnic. It's not pleasant. I agree with that. But the founding fathers felt that bankruptcy was so important. They called for uniform bankruptcy laws in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8. Read it for yourself. You will see the call for uniform bankruptcy laws listed ahead of the power to declare war and raise an army And the very unique violation of this for federal and more recently since 2005, private student loans proves their wisdom in spades. But the most important point, I think, was the first point that these people are making, is that somehow returning bankruptcy protections to student loans will take the wind out of the sails. It will make student loan cancellation less likely. And that is absolutely and outrageously false. The opposite of that is true. The threat of bankruptcy is absolutely critical for giving the citizens leverage to make demands like canceling student loans. Right now, and for the past 30 or 40 years, we have been without that power. And we have been naked and defenseless and completely vulnerable to the collection industry. Returning bankruptcy protections is the leverage that we need to make demands that are taken seriously. And look in the world right now. Bankruptcy remains gone from student loans. Joe Biden is obviously not taking us very seriously. There's basically 2 loan cancellation proposals on the table now. The lowest being this $10,000 across the board cancellation, the other being this up to $50,000 loan cancellation. And ladies and gentlemen, both of those proposals are garbage. They are nonsense. Up to $50,000 could mean anything, and many years, in fact, decades, several decades now worth of very keen observation has taught us, has showed us that the Department of Education has no desire or intentions of canceling any student loans. They just don't. So when you put a loan cancellation program in front of them, they will do everything they can do to bureaucratize it to death and not cancel student loans. I mean, look at any number of loan cancellation plans that have come out since the 90s. ICR, income-based repayment, pay-as-you-earn, revised pay-as-you-earn. All of these, and they are loan cancellation programs, they're repayment plans, but they promise loan cancellation. More than 99% of all the people trying for these have been disqualified out of the programs. Like of something like 3.5 million people who tried for income contingent repayment, ICR, 32 people have actually made it through that. That's like, you could easily fit them in my cramped living room here in Northwoods, Wisconsin. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Department of Education jettisoned all pretense of looking out for the interests of the borrowers decades ago, before I even probably had student loans, I suspect. The Department of Education will do everything to not cancel loans. And in the absence of bankruptcy protections, that's precisely what will happen. This $10,000 will probably wind up becoming up to $10,000 if Biden does anything. And again, up to could mean anything. It means there will be means testing. It means there will be an application process. It will mean any number of bureaucratic hooks put into the plan. Same thing for up to $50,000. So, tomorrow Joe Biden could call a press conference and say, okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to cancel up to $50,000. And the reality, as decades of experience have shown, would be you get $8,000, you get $3,000, you get nothing because you're in default, you get nothing because you didn't dot your I or cross your T on your application. This is the sort of thing that up to any amount is going to result in. We've seen this movie before, ladies and gentlemen, many times. It's a very bad movie. It's a cruel joke, and we are the punchline. We're not being tricked. Again, we will not. Sometimes I lament the fact that we've been around for 17 years now, all that I and others have sacrificed in this cause and been so hard to get anything done. But in many ways, I'm very glad, because those 17 years have taught us the greasy, dirty, underhanded back channel tricks and traps to get played on the borrowers. So I'm really glad that we stuck it out this long so that, if nothing else, our institutional memory can inform us and make us more wise to the ways of the Washington, D.C. swamp. So we will not see meaningful student loan cancellation unless and until we get the threat of bankruptcy returned to us. You may view bankruptcy as a punishment, and I agree, it's unpleasant. Nobody wants to file. But quite frankly, maybe one of the most statistics that I'll put out tonight is, and by the way, if you have any questions or comments, sorry I didn't mention this. If you have questions or comments, if you're watching us on Twitter or Facebook, and if I can see them, which is not always guaranteed, go ahead and lodge them, and I will very happily respond to them. Before the pandemic, 64.3%, that's nearly 2/3 of all borrowers, were not making payments on their student loans. The chief operating officer of the lending program, Wayne Johnson, said that 80% of all federal student loan borrowers were underwater on their loans before the pandemic. That's like 36 point something million people. Now, in the current state, I don't think the economy got better. I think we're closer to 39 or 40 million people. 40 million people who are losing sleep over their student loan debt. Now, in a typical year, fewer than 1 million people file for bankruptcy for any reason. Credit cards, whatever, other types of consumer debt. So the specter, the threat alone, if Biden were to do nothing and we were only to get our bankruptcy rights back, the very real threat, in fact, almost the virtual certainty that tens of millions of people would ultimately wind up filing for bankruptcy. That threat alone is more than enough to compel very meaningful, widespread student loan cancellation. So whether you want total and complete federal student loan cancellation, which we do, and which we started the petition for before anybody was talking about student loan cancellation by executive order, I might add. Whether you want full and total loan cancellation, whether you want, I know a lot of people are talking about wanting a break on interest or some other negotiated settlement, whatever you want. Maybe you actually really want to file for bankruptcy. I've almost never met, maybe I've met like 2 people who literally want to file for bankruptcy. But unless you're like the Sacklers or something, I don't think it's a really pleasant thing. Whatever you want for this student loan program, only the threat of bankruptcy will give us the leverage that we need to make that demand and be taken seriously in Washington, D.C. You know, I hope I don't even really have to go out of my way to prove this to you. That's kind of common sense. Let's look at credit cards. If you borrow $5,000 on a credit card and they jack it up to $15,000 and you're like, hey, I can't do this. This is crazy. I'm going to go file for bankruptcy. They'll be like, oh, okay. No. And the credit card companies will negotiate a very fair and reasonable settlement for you. That's the way it goes. And that's why very, very few people file for bankruptcy every year, because the credit card companies respect the power that the threat of bankruptcy, as called for in the Constitution, by the way, gives the citizens. Now, in the case of student loans, it's a little bit different because there's so many freaking student loan borrowers out there who have been so badly screwed for years. At this point, very widespread loan cancellation is definitely in order. Frankly, I think the best for all involved is to simply cancel all of the loans and start over again. I mean, maybe 20% of the people can and will repay their loans. That leaves 80% who would not. Like, at what point is it not worth it to even try and push this failed rigor mortis lending beast further down the road. Frankly, I think there's a lot of good people in Washington, D.C. who would like nothing more than to spend their careers reinventing how we fund college in this country in a way that's fair. Now, as a group, we're agnostic as to what that might look like. Maybe free college for all. Sounds great to me. Maybe on the other side of the spectrum, maybe they continue doing loans, which I think is a terrible idea. But maybe they want to keep doing loans and they return bankruptcy protection, statute of limitations, other safeguards to make sure that this catastrophe never happens again. I don't know. I'm agnostic. That's to my way of thinking. It's pretty much the next problem. Right now, the $1.6 trillion gorilla that will not be pushed, this can will not be kicked down the road any longer, is what to do with the loan portfolio right now. And right now, whether you want loan cancellation, whether you want a negotiated settlement, whether you want some other solution, getting the threat of bankruptcy, getting that leverage back on our side is absolutely critical. Now, some of these people that I saw yesterday, they were saying, oh, they'll return bankruptcy and that's all they'll do. And then they'll never cancel loans. That's ridiculous on its face. I agree that they will never meaningfully cancel loans as long as bankruptcy is gone. We've seen them do that since 2007. And here's where I want to tell you a little bit of history here, ladies and gentlemen. This is very interesting. So in 2007, some people claiming to be student loan advocates went to great lengths to kill the push for the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans. And at that time, they said, oh, no. We don't need bankruptcy. We're going to have these great repayment programs like income-based repayment and public service loan forgiveness. Well, both of those programs turned out to be massive, cruel jokes. Only sort of an emergency act by the president recently has given at least a few people in public service some relief, but no, ladies and gentlemen, those are just two more on a very long list of failed loan cancellation gimmicks designed to keep this lending scam going. And, one other quick point on the punishment thing. The punishment is taking bankruptcy protections away. And if you don't believe me, ask anyone who's over the age of, say, 50 and has had these loans for 25 or 30 years. Maybe they fell into default. People like we have one woman who originally borrowed $26,000. She has repaid $92,000 on this $26,000 loan. She now owes $132,000 still on this loan. I could go on for hours telling you stories like that. That is the true punishment. So we have seen people come, some very ambitious, eager, zealous people come and work very hard to kill the push for the return of bankruptcy protections. We've seen that trick in 2007. In 2011, we saw another group foist that trick on us. And I really hate to even speak their names, but I think in this case, I'll break my rule. So there was this guy, Robert Applebaum, that came around in 2010 or 11, and he started a group called Cancel Student Loan Debt and Stimulate the Economy, which was great. We were thrilled because at the time we were only calling for the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans. So we were very glad to have somebody on that flank, on the more extreme part of that argument. But over time, we found that people in Robert's group were coming onto our group and trying very, very hard in very sneaky and surreptitious ways to kill our push for the return of bankruptcy protections. We thought that was very strange. There was a girl, Rayanne Roca, who I remember distinctly, who, and I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but she came onto our group and in very sneaky and suspicious ways was doing everything she could do to throw shade on bankruptcy, using the exact same argument that I just laid out in the first few minutes of this live stream. Well, we thought that was beyond weird, and we had a big row with Robert, and he ended up just going absolutely crazy and I don't know what happened to Robert. Actually, I heard that he passed away. So rest in peace, Robert. But the point remains. This was very suspicious to us. We came to find out that this woman, Rayanne Roca, she calls herself Rayanne Pickett now, had come into Robert's group from the war room of something called the DCI Group. The DCI Group is a Republican lobbying firm. They are famous for creating fake grassroots groups on behalf of banks, insurance companies, tobacco companies, oil companies, even foreign governments, I've heard, in an attempt to sway public opinion. So that sort of speaks for itself. And I will even add that group has become okay. So here's how it went. We discovered this thing about Rayanne. We asked her about it. We confronted them about it. All of a sudden, she disappeared. All of a sudden, Robert disappeared. And I haven't heard from Robert since I heard that he passed. And I haven't been able to confirm that. But so Robert disappeared. Rayanne disappeared, and the group went dark for a while. And then they popped up again under a new name. And again, I don't even want to give those people free advertising because they're just absolute snakes and they're just disgusting and vile. And last I heard, their current leader was still throwing cold water on the push for bankruptcy protections. So whatever was motivating that group way back 10 years ago, I think is still motivating that group, and shame on them for that. But that happens, guys. We have opposition. Make no mistake. There are a lot of people who would really like to continue this lending scam. And as long as they can keep bankruptcy protections away, that's what's going to happen. As long as we remain defenseless, naked, and without at least that ultimate toothpick of power of bankruptcy, we're going to continue to see these fake loan cancellation groups come up. And I don't know what to say. I'm not launching any accusations until I have proof. But what we're seeing has all the hallmarks of that thing that happened to us 10 years ago. So be careful, guys. Hopefully those of you who have been on our group for any length of time realize that I'm a no bullshit guy. We are the most honest, truly grassroots group in existence. We don't do secret handshakes with bad guys, etc. So one other very critical thing that you need to realize, and I'm going to tell you another story. So I lived at Occupy Wall Street. I was in a tent at Zuccotti Park, New York, for several months, day in, day out. I had a lot of fun. It was great. But one day, a guy that had come up into our group on the internet in previous months, a guy named Jerry Ashton, came to the park. And Jerry, it turns out, and in fact, I already knew this, he was an operative for the collection industry. Jerry wrote a blog, and Jerry said all these great things about how terrible student loans are and how the 99% and this and that. And he was just parodying all the buzzwords from Occupy Wall Street. But previous to Occupy Wall Street, I smelled kind of a rat with Jerry because he would never exactly say what his interest was. So lo and behold, he comes up to me at Occupy Wall Street. He had flown in an accountant friend of his from California. And I can tell you, after sitting there, standing with him for about 7 minutes, these men were drooling at the prospect of a mass default in the continued absence of bankruptcy. So one other little side note, before Occupy Wall Street, I got suspicious of Jerry. And I said, hey, Jerry, I don't know what your deal is, but if you actually want me to trust you and take you seriously, you will write an article in your blog calling unambiguously for the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans. And Jerry said, oh, yeah. No, I'll do it. Yeah. Jerry never did it. And he never has done it. And I don't even know if he's around anymore, but he will never do it. So Jerry Ashton is not a good guy. He is a collection agent. He is looking out for the collection industry. And even Jerry would admit, and he has said, that student loans, in the absence of bankruptcy, absence of statutes of limitations, are the golden, I think golden unicorn was his exact words, of the student loan industry. There is no other loan in this country that has been stripped of bankruptcy protections. No other loan that's been deleted of statutes of limitations. So I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, here's maybe the most timely and important thing I'm going to say tonight. We are going to see a mass default, certainly on federal student loans, when and if they turn this repayment program back on. That's going to happen. The collection industry is drooling today even more than they were drooling 10 years ago about the prospect of that happening in the continued absence of bankruptcy protections. So is the collection industry still operating in the shadows behind this group on the internet, on Twitter, etc.? You and I would be idiots to think that they weren't. Do I have proof to actually level any accusations at this time? No, I don't need proof. I can smell these rats from quite a ways away, and it's enough. It's enough for me when I hear people like this so-called progressive, and I'm not even going to. If I knew his name, I wouldn't even mention his name. He doesn't post his name. He's anonymous in his group. You can't find any real names on that group. It looks like a complete setup to me. But anybody saying that bankruptcy and student loan cancellation are opposing concepts is either woefully misinformed and frankly stupid, or they are in fact working for our opposition. So bankruptcy and student loan cancellation, and this is the most important point I'm going to make tonight, bankruptcy and student loan cancellation are not opposing concepts. They are simpatico. And in fact, we're not going to have the leverage we need to make the president actually meaningfully cancel loans unless and until we have the leverage of the threat of bankruptcy in our back pocket, returned to the people. And that's the truest thing I'll probably ever say in this debate. So just remember that, ladies and gentlemen. So the final point that I would just beg you to consider, think about your own situation. If you're like most people, you either weren't paying before the pandemic, and you probably, and even more likely that you will not resume paying when and if this repayment thing, when they end the repayment pause and start trying to make people pay again. It's not going to happen. 80% will not pay is my best estimate. So if that's you, think about your own situation. Do you want May 1st or whenever they turn the lending program back on? Do you want that to, do you want May 1st? Do you want to face that reality naked and defenseless and vulnerable to the collection industry in the absence of bankruptcy protections? Or would you rather, on balance, like one or the other, or would you rather have at least the toothpick of power, that the threat at least of bankruptcy provides you and all other borrowers in the country for all other types of loans? If you actually have student loans and you're watching me, then I'm kind of thinking that you definitely want to see that second thing. Am I wrong on that? Let's see if I can find the comments. So yeah, guys, in all cases, under all scenarios, getting bankruptcy protections returned to us is a good thing. And alternatively, in all scenarios, with bankruptcy remaining gone, we cannot and have no reason to expect that we will see any significant changes to this lending system. It will continue. And that's very dangerous. It's dangerous for you personally. It's dangerous to 45 million people in the country. But more than that, Think about the tens or hundreds of millions of people who are going to follow in our footsteps. And even more than that, if they can do to other loans what they did to student loans, that is, take bankruptcy rights away, they can do that to any loans. I've already heard murmurs on the street about putting a similar undue hardship standard, which makes discharge essentially impossible, to medical debt. They would love to do that. You know, our opposition are, I'd say, sociopathic, vicious predators. They're beasts. They're I'm going to kill you before you kill me type of people. There's no love in their hearts. They have no problems beggaring this whole entire country, and they would do that if we let them. So there's a lot riding on this fight, ladies and gentlemen, and I can only hope that the truth of what I'm saying tonight has gotten through to you, and that when you see people throwing shade on bankruptcy and they try and play to your basest instincts like, oh, bankruptcy is terrible, we shouldn't have to file for, and no, let's everybody just stop paying and don't worry about bankruptcy. They are setting you up to be devoured by the collection industry. And whatever their motivations are, they should be ashamed of themselves. Now, I don't know why almost any other student advocates that I see, certainly on the internet anyways, aren't way more vocal about the absolutely critical need to return bankruptcy protection to student loans. Frankly, I think you should, if you're in multiple groups, you should confront them and you should demand to know what is their take on that. Frankly, they ought to be ashamed of themselves. If they're claiming to be student loan advocates, they should know at least that much. I mean, that much is just patently obvious. So anyways, they can defend themselves. I'm certainly not going to even try. I find it as perplexing as you do. So see if I can find any comments here. Oh, wow. We have 4 comments. Let me see if I can get through to them. Now, this is on Twitter here. I'm just going to get through them as quickly as I can. See, why do the comments disappear? There was 4 comments, and then I clicked on the Twitter thing, and now it's not showing any comments. I think my bandwidth is maybe a little bit slow. All right, guys, I'm not going to waste any more time here. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I can't see the comments. I will respond to them offline. Maybe I'll do a quick refresh and see. And going over to Facebook. By the way, if you want to join these conversations, Facebook and Twitter is the only place you can do it. And even that, as you can tell, is pretty difficult for me to handle. So, but if you're watching this on YouTube or Instagram, any of our other channels, you pretty much have to come and see us. Join our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/SLJ group. Live video. Okay. Or check us out on Twitter. Our handle is student loan JUS #1. So good evening, Joanna. Vanji says you can find them on Facebook. Okay, good. Leslie Gordon says, were you talking to? Okay, well, our comments appear to be essentially unintelligible tonight, so that's okay. Let me give Twitter one more little go around. This week is very important, ladies and gentlemen. We have a great bill. Last week, I told you that good news. We also were featured in some newspaper in New York, New Amsterdam Times or something like that, so that's great. I got some very good news from Washington, D.C. from our contacts in the Senate last week, and I can't share that with you yet. But what I can tell you is, ladies and gentlemen, we are on the verge, finally, at long last, after 17 years of very good-faithed, diligent, thorough, and persistent fighting. I can finally say that we're as close as we've ever been. And I can not only see the light at the end of the tunnel, I can smell it. So what we do, what you do in the next, I'm going to say before the end of the month, certainly, is just absolutely critical. It's make or break for us. The most important thing that we can be doing, anyone can be doing, is pushing Republican senators to co-sponsor our bill. Historically, the Republicans have been terrible on this issue. And whether you like Republicans, whether you are Republican, or whether you hate them, whatever your political philosophy is, you're very welcome in this group. But the fact of the matter is that we have to push Republicans, people like Senator Marco Rubio, Senator Rick Scott, Florida, Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina, Senator Ted Cruz, who is not a good guy on the student loan issue. We have to push these guys. We are making a very strong conservative argument in many ways. You know, conservatives say that they're against big government. Red states are being absolutely devastated by this debt. Most conservatives don't particularly like the colleges. And I should maybe add, there is a thing in our bill which requires the colleges to reimburse the government. It's a nominal, pretty token amount, probably won't even apply to most colleges, but nonetheless, it does hold the colleges at least somewhat accountable. So we have 2 Republican co-sponsors on this bill, S-2598 already. We need more. We need more. If you have 1 or 2 Republican senators and you are serious and you understand your personal stake in this battle, I'm telling you, what you do is absolutely critical. You can't sit there and wait and watch and worry and expect that anybody's going to pull your weight. Because as I said, we are the only group in the nation actually, of any significant size anyways, actually fighting this battle. And if you don't help us, it's probably not going to get done. So we are the pioneers, and you cannot unhear that. You cannot unhear that. You're the pioneer. You are. On any given day, somewhere between 500 and 1,000 people that I can tell are actually helping us. Then that's not nearly enough, guys. It just isn't. So in the next 2 weeks, if you have 1 or 2 Republican senators in your state, I would hope you would maybe even make it a part-time job, or if you're not working like me, a full-time job. This is my full-time job. Put some very serious passion and effort and elbow grease and grit and pluck and spine into getting both of your Republican senators to co-sponsor S-2598. You know, even getting your local media to report on how terrible this problem is and how you have been pushing the senators, maybe unsuccessfully, to co-sponsor S-2598. That is also very good pressure that you can put on. Join your state chapter group. We have state chapter groups across the country, 50 of them. In fact, 51, including our global expatriate group. Enlist the help of your state chapter group, or maybe even help to lead it, because a lot of at least a few of our state chapter groups don't have leaders. And even some that do, we would love to have more leaders, like multiple leaders in those groups. All politics are sort of local, as they say. And so do that. You know, I don't want to, we hate micromanaging here, but the most important action item I will say is that if you go to our website, studentloanjustice.org, you will see, not every day, but like at least 3 times a week or 4, we have daily actions. So go to our website, studentloanjustice.org, and do a month, maybe 2, maybe even 3 months worth of our daily actions. They're quick. Like, you can probably do a daily action in like about maybe a minute or 2 minutes at the most is what the average is. It's mostly Twitter stuff, so you probably definitely want to have a Twitter account. It's some email stuff, some phone calling stuff. But these daily actions are carefully thought through and tailored for whatever's going on at the moment. So have a look. And if you've got an hour to kill, do a month or 2 worth of our daily actions. It helps. In fact, I'd say it's probably the most effective, efficient use of your time. And what else were you going to do, by the way? Were you going to wait and watch and worry and expect that somebody else is going to solve the student loan problem for you? 17 years of experience has taught us very strongly that never happens. It is only when you take ownership of this problem. I know student loans suck, but that's kind of our battle to fight. It's your battle. So don't run away. Don't hide. Don't fight or flight. I choose fight. You need to jump in. The water is fine. And by the way, I think most people that have been with our group for any length of time will tell you fighting this fight is cathartic. It feels good. We're on the right side of this argument historically, constitutionally, and into the future. And we've got the right path. We are absolutely and totally fighting for total and complete student loan cancellation, even private loans, if we could find a way to do that. Without a doubt, we are 1,000% behind student loan cancellation by executive order. And if you go to our Medium website, studentloanjustice.medium.com, and if you read the most recent 5 or 6 articles that we've written, take your time, enjoy them. They're easy to read. You will have all the tools that you need to be a very effective student loan justice warrior. And as I said, we need you. Nothing will happen unless and until you step up. You're not better than us. Don't think you are. You're not. Step up and join the people out there like Vanjie, like Gordon, like everybody I saw comments from just now, and do the work necessary. It's not even hard work. It's just kind of stuff you have to do. Frankly, I kind of enjoy it. I think it's fun to make our argument. We're teaching people stuff that they don't know. Like when you read those Medium articles, you're going to see at least probably 7 things, 7 facts that are shocking, but they are true, and they've never been reported in the mainstream media. Most people don't know these facts. And I, Alan Collins, guarantee 100% that these are very credible facts. I've written books. I've been featured on 60 Minutes. I've broken some of the most, we as a group, I should say, have broken some of the more and in fact most important stories in higher education over the past 17 years. I kid you not. This group is a little kind of a big deal than you may think, and that to my discredit, I probably don't convey that nearly enough. But this group is important. And what you do is very important. In fact, you have no idea how important you are. In the words of fictional hero John Connors from Terminator 3. Okay, sorry. I've tried that one out too many times, I think. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, this is a very serious problem. Please take it seriously. These next 2 weeks are indeed critical, like nothing, like never before in the 17-year history of our group. So I've gone on way too long. I hope that first bit about why bankruptcy is so important, why you should not listen to, or you should be very suspicious of anybody who's trying to throw shade on bankruptcy. In all cases, every scenario, returning bankruptcy is good. And in, I think, almost all scenarios, not returning bankruptcy is catastrophic for us. There's one caveat I could do there, but you know what? I'm going to leave it there at that. I've gone on way too long. So think about that, ladies and gentlemen. Keep us posted as to your progress. Do our daily actions. I will be back tomorrow, hopefully with some more good news. At the rate things are happening, I am on pins and needles right now. So hopefully we'll be seeing more and more good news more and more frequently from here on out. So here's to hoping. Good luck to you. Hang in there. Godspeed. Do our daily actions. And God bless everybody. And have a great week. Let's make this the best one ever for student loan justice.